While I still believe it's possible, this video does not rely on the brain impersonator theory. Ever since Kingdom Hearts 3, I've been interested in Brain's virus speech. I expected this speech about overriding the world's path towards inevitable destruction to foreshadow that he would come in clutch and save everyone at the last minute. Yeah, so in general, I do believe that the finale may have been cut short in minor ways due to Union Cross's service suddenly closing. However, it's clear that Daybreak Town's destruction was always meant to happen since it was referenced in Remind. Because of this, I've come to the conclusion that in this scene where Brain is talking about overriding destruction, he's not referring to Union Cross's finale, but rather Kingdom Hearts 3's climax. The Tear. In Kingdom Hearts 3, all of the Guardians of Light fell, leading to the fulfillment of the Book of Prophecy's final passage. Darkness will prevail and the light expire. Chirithy implies in Remind that it was Sora regathering himself and resurrecting the Guardians that led to this doomed fate being overwritten. Nomura also says this in the Ultimania. But when it comes to this overwrite in events, called the Tear in the Fabric of Time, I have to stick to my gun about questioning interview answers, because I absolutely think there's more going on here. But before the final conclusion, there are a lot of other components we have to address first. Eraqus and Brain's knowledge. Throughout Kingdom Hearts 3, there are hints that Eraqus is aware of the bigger picture. For one thing, his suspicious line about the Lost Masters
Never heard of him. Where'd you hear about that?
signifies, in my opinion, that Eraqus is playing dumb because that information is supposed to be confidential. There's also him predicting the light of the past coming to help the Guardians, more specifically Sora. You could argue that that's just a coincidence set up for the sake of storytelling, but there's one more hint that makes me absolutely sure that Eraqus knows something's up. And it's him predicting that the final passage of the Book of Prophecies will be overwritten.
On that land shall darkness prevail and light expire. The future. It's already been written. Really? I'm not so sure about that. Besides, who's to say I can't change it? And maybe light will prevail.
I can't tell if this is all passed down knowledge within Eraqus and Brain's family, or if Eraqus somehow received Brain's memories, possibly implied by Dark Road. My point being not to emphasize how much Eraqus knows, but rather Brain himself. Brain may have also known that the final passage of the Book of Prophecies will be overwritten like Eraqus did. Based on his virus speech, the Tear in Time could have even been his plan all along, the seeds of which may have been planted with his conversation with Ava years beforehand, in which they discuss what would happen if the Book of Prophecies was ever deliberately contradicted. Now, I promise we'll get back to the Tear in Time, but for now, I want to talk more about Union Cross. Brain in the Badlands. In Observations Excerpt 2, Luxu writes, "Amid the chaos, I bequeathed my Keyblade to one of the Union leaders, and now, Keybladeless, I must depart this land to fulfill my final task." I know many have come to the conclusions that either Luxu possessed Brain, or that Luxu looks like Brain, but those completely contradict this report. And, in my opinion, saying this report was retconned is a way bigger jump than saying it wasn't. I think this report absolutely makes sense the way it is, with the theory that this is Brain himself in the desert. Brain gave the Master Defender to Ephemer, so he could no longer protect himself from Darkness or Heartless. And since Luxu shows multiple times that he cares about the Union leaders, I imagine he gave Brain no name so that he could continue protecting himself. I personally think this line is not a threat, but genuine. That also explains why Brain is in a black coat. The impact of the Keyblade War did indeed separate the worlds, so Brain's only method to reach the Keyblade Graveyard now would have been through a corridor of darkness, which the coat would protect him from. One could debate on if Luxu can even open a corridor of darkness for Brain, since it's not known if he submitted to darkness. But the Master did tell him to use a corridor when Daybreak Town falls. And these gateways seem to only be for entering, exiting, and traversing the Book of Prophecy's projections and its data versions, since they are never used again after the projections disappear. While I don't have an answer as to why Brain would hide the box instead of Luxu, I will say that it finally explains why Xigbar doesn't know where it is during Kingdom Hearts 3. Xigbar and the box. Maleficent thinks a copy of the Book of Prophecies is in the box. I still think it was Luxu who told her this, as a lie, during Union Cross, because Pete calling this person a dingbat in black, to me says organization coat more than it does being of darkness. But now that Maleficent's returned generations later, Xigbar's suddenly racing to find the box before her, like Luxu points out in Remind.
If this box is truly as important as you say, why now? I believe you discovered that others also seek it, and you need to find it before anyone else does.
I think if Maleficent wasn't so determined to find the box, that Xigbar would have happily waited until after the Keyblade War to retrieve it. But if Xigbar is truly searching for it because he wasn't the one to hide it, it's definitely strange that he suddenly has it during Kingdom Hearts 3's epilogue, and I think Maleficent showing up during this scene is a callback. Steam Whistler 2 on Twitter pointed out this scene of Maleficent and Pete.
You cannot find the unfindable. The box does not exist. I mean, the box does not exist now. Light and darkness are fated to clash. A Keyblade War is upon us. We need only wait for that destined moment. No matter the victors, the box will be revealed.
And this is where the tear in time comes in. If Brain truly knew the tear was going to occur, and if he's the one who hid the box, I think he hid it in a way where it stopped existing until the tear occurred. Xigbar himself seems to acknowledge that the tear happened.
We gotta make sure you're not blundering your way toward a second failure.
So I think after Xigbar faked his death, he ran off in one final attempt to find the box, and finally succeeded. Now, back to Union Cross. We have one more component to address before reaching the concluding theory. The Lifeboat Problem. By the way, eventually I'll create a video explaining how both the real and data lifeboats work, because I understand it can be confusing. If Luxu really did use a corridor to escape to another world when Daybreak Town fell apart, like we discussed earlier, Brain may have gone with him, because there's never a pod available for Brain to time travel with. When he talks to Luxu, the two pods present are sent back into the data world to retrieve Skuld and Ephemer. And when those two arrive using those pods, Brain and Luxu are nowhere to be seen. Even the pod meant for player never made it out of the data world before the basement collapsed. So, I don't think Brain could have time traveled with any of these pods. Likewise, the Master of Masters told Darkness that anyone who time travels via the lifeboat needs certain requirements. Him listing his own fulfillments of said requirements implies the Master would indeed time travel using the lifeboat. However, using the lifeboat would trigger Daybreak Town's destruction, and he never caused that, Maleficent did. So if the Master was able to time travel via the lifeboat without using its pods, Brain may have used the same method. By the way, the glitches created beforehand by Wreck-It Ralph's world seem like a separate incident entirely. Luxu says the lifeboat's requirements are that someone who has memories of them and a medium to rebuild their body both need to exist at their arrival. In English, this line is a vessel to occupy, but every other time it's translated as a medium. We could discuss if these requirements really are solely for the lifeboat or for time travel in general, but I think it would work best in another video since that subject can get lengthy. For now, for the fun of theorizing, let's say the requirements are solely for the lifeboat. Based on the Master's eye being his medium, and Maleficent's medium probably being her coat, it seems that mediums are objects that belong to the traveler. But Lorium, Elrina, Ven, and Skuld all have bodies anyway, so their lack of a medium may be why they don't have memories instead. Because the Master and Maleficent do. I know many theorize that the flower bed and lightning work as mediums, but I guess I simply disagree. But Luxu possibly suggesting to Brain that his hat be his medium may explain why he remembers In Scala ad Caelum. In the reports, Luxu says, "In time, be it years or decades, century or millennia, I will meet the 5 Union leaders once more." If this includes Ephemer, whose pod never time traveled since it didn't fade away, Luxu may have given Ephemer Brain's hat while Brain's away in the desert. But, to be honest, I can't tell if Brain returned to Luxu after hiding the box. There's a tiny chance Brain literally disappeared along with the box, which is far-fetched, but let me explain. Unreality. It's possible fiction or something else will be the official name, but I'm calling it Unreality for now. Earlier, I said Brain and the Master may have time traveled the same way because neither of them seem to have used the pods of the lifeboat directly. In a flashback, the Master implies the place he'll run off to when he disappears is Unreality. But if the Master really did time travel at some point, does that mean he did so coming from Unreality? I have no evidence for this. But I can't help but wonder if there's another lifeboat, or at least something like it, in Unreality, as that explains why the Master would need to fulfill the lifeboat requirements while still not triggering Daybreak Town's destruction himself. This lifeboat may be an exact twin, like the finished one in Hollow Bastion, or a very different device that still allows time travel with the same requirements. I'm calling it a lifeboat either way for convenience. As for Brain, once again, there was never a pod he could use before the basement collapsed. If the Master only knows what the gazing eye sees, and if Brain received no name, the Master may have only seen Unreality in the first place due to Brain possibly arriving there. And another lifeboat there may explain how Brain time traveled back into reality while still needing the requirements like a medium. And finally, as for the tear in time, I can explain it like this. If we take a piece of paper and tear it, things can pass through the hole. So the tear in time may have been a hole for which the box could phase back into reality, in which Xigbar could finally retrieve it after faking his death. And it's here that we circle back. This video bounces between Kingdom Hearts 3 and Union Cross a lot, but I think that goes to show just how intertwined they were written together. If Brain truly slipped into Unreality along with the box, was he somehow able to utilize this phenomenon to overwrite the final passage of the Book of Prophecies as the tear in the fabric of time?